My name is Daniel Carter. I work at Glacier Station, a frozen research base no one ever talks about. It doesn't show up on tourist maps. It barely shows up on government records. On paper, we study ice cores, seismic pressure, and deep permafrost movement. We drill. We log data. We pretend the cold is just weather. In reality, we study how long a human body can stay silent before it starts screaming. The rules here aren't written in manuals. They're not posted on walls. They're passed down in whispers. They're written in blood. And if you're hearing this now, it means I broke one. There were 8 of us when I arrived at Glacier Station. Not soldiers. Not heroes. Just people who needed a paycheck and didn't ask too many questions. 2 engineers who argued constantly about numbers. 3 technicians who fixed whatever broke and never explained how. 1 medic who used to work ER shifts in Anchorage and drank more coffee than water. And 1 logistics guy named Tom who had spent 15 years on offshore oil rigs and claimed this place felt familiar in a bad way. Most of us were American. A few from small towns. A few ex-military. All of us pretending we were tougher than the cold. The station itself was old. Not abandoned but close. Metal walls scarred by decades of wind. Paint peeled down to bare steel. A faded American flag hung in the common room. Edges frayed, colors washed out like it had been left outside too long. Officially, Glacier Station was funded through a rotating web of research grants. Climate studies. Geological surveys. Deep ice core sampling. Unofficially, no one ever gave the same answer twice. Every question about funding ended with a shrug. Every request for background documents came back redacted. We were told not to worry about it. Just do your job, they said. Collect the data. Don't wander. Daily life settled into routine fast. Wake up. Check instruments. Log numbers that barely changed. Drink coffee so strong it burned your tongue and tasted like regret. Crack dry jokes that never quite landed. Someone taped a handwritten sign above the coffee maker. If this freezes, we're all dead. We laughed every time. A little too loudly. Outside, the wind never stopped. It didn't howl like in movies. It didn't scream. It pressed. Constant. Low. Endless. Like something leaning its weight against the station, testing it. At night, the walls creaked. Metal contracted. Bolts popped softly, one by one. We told ourselves it was normal. The cold messes with sound. Ice moves. Buildings complain. The first night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear. Because of the silence. No animals. No distant engines. No sense of life beyond the walls. Just white darkness and wind. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the radio crackled. I remember the time because I checked twice. The sound wasn't static. It was rhythmic. Inhale. Exhale. Slow. Like something very large learning how lungs work. I waited for a voice. Nothing came. After 10 seconds, the radio went dead again. In the morning, I asked if anyone else had heard it. No one looked surprised. Tom avoided my eyes. The medic said, "Radio interference happens out here." One of the techs added, "You'll get used to it." That was the first time someone used that phrase. You'll get used to it. Over the next few days, I started noticing other things. Lights flickered even when the generator read steady. Hallway bulbs dimmed for half a second, then returned to normal. Shadows lingered longer than they should have. Once, while drilling samples near the lower ice access, I felt it. The sensation of being watched. Not from behind. From below. The ice beneath my boots felt close. Too close. I pressed my ear to it, expecting vibration. I swear I felt pressure pushing back. I laughed it off. So did everyone else. That's what we did at Glacier Station. We laughed. We drank coffee. We followed instructions. And we ignored the feeling that something down there was paying attention. We told ourselves it was a pressure shift. Ice moves. Ice groans. Ice lies. That's what the textbooks say. That's what the old-timers in polar work say too. If you live long enough in a place like this, you learn to blame the ice for everything. A door sticks. The ice. A pipe pops. The ice. You can't sleep. The ice. But ice doesn't scratch. It started on day 4. I was in the core lab, logging density layers, when the whole station gave a small, ugly shudder. Not an earthquake. Not a clean vibration. More like something heavy outside had shifted its weight. The mugs on the counter rattled. The overhead light blinked once. And from somewhere below the floor, I heard it. A slow drag. Not a crack. Not a pop. A drag. Like a fingernail pulled across frozen glass. I stared at the floor until my eyes watered. Then I did what every rational adult does in an irrational place. I wrote it down. Time 14:12. Sound of subfloor contact, irregular. Possible cause thermal contraction. That sentence made me feel better for exactly 7 minutes. Because at 14:19, the temperature inside the lab dropped so fast my breath fogged. The thermostat didn't change. The generator didn't hiccup. It just fell, like the room had inhaled cold from a deeper lung. My fingers went numb through my gloves. The metal table burned my palms. And the air carried a faint smell I couldn't place at first. Sharp. Coppery. Like a penny warmed between teeth. Blood. I told myself it was iron dust. Old pipes. Old vents. Old station. That night, the ice started doing things that didn't match the maps. We monitored fissure lines every morning. That's standard. Cracks form in predictable patterns. Stress points. Flow direction. Pressure ridges. The ice has rules, even when it's violent. But these cracks weren't following anything. They weren't branching naturally. They weren't spreading from weak points. They were deliberate. Thin lines that traveled too straight. Too purposeful. As if something underneath was drawing them with patience. Tom noticed first. He stood over the monitor in the control room, chewing on a toothpick, eyes narrowed. "That ain't right," he said. I asked what he meant. He tapped the screen. "Look at the angle. The direction. It's like it's heading somewhere." "Heading where?" I asked. Tom didn't answer. He just took the toothpick out of his mouth and stared at the floor like it might answer for him. At dinner, people got quieter. The jokes dried up. The coffee tasted worse. Even the medic stopped teasing the engineers. The station had that feeling you get in a small-town diner right before a fight breaks out. Nobody says it's coming. Everyone feels it anyway. At 3:17 a.m., the radio crackled again. This time I was awake. I didn't move at first. I listened from my bunk, staring at the underside of the mattress above me, counting my breaths like it mattered. Inhale. Exhale. Then the radio did it too. Inhale. Exhale. Slow. Steady. And underneath that breathing there was something else. A soft, wet sound. Like lips trying to separate from ice. I sat up. My heart was punching hard enough to make my ribs ache. The radio didn't speak. But I swear it wanted to. When the noise stopped, it left the room colder than before. Not winter cold. Not bad insulation cold. This was the kind of cold that feels personal. Like it's aimed at you. The next morning, I found the first mark. It was under the storage hallway, near the place where we kept spare filters and cases of canned chili. A long, pale line ran along the metal floor panel. At first I thought it was a scrape from moving crates. Then I crouched and ran my fingers over it. The edge was raised. The metal had been scored from beneath. A scratch. Not on top of the floor. Under it. I knocked on Tom's door and showed him. He stared at it for a long time, then gave me the same look he'd given the crack maps. That look people get when they want to lie but their face refuses. "What does it look like?" I asked. Tom swallowed. "Looks like something down there got tired of waiting. We called it in as structural anomaly. That's the polite term. That's the paperwork term. But the station didn't care about our terms. That afternoon, the lights began to flicker in patterns. Not random. Not a brownout. 3 quick blinks. Pause. 2 blinks. Pause. 1 long dimming like a slow eyelid. The medic joked, maybe the building's trying to talk. No one laughed. I started smelling that copper scent more often. In the hallway. In the vents. In my gloves after touching door handles. One time, I woke up with it in my mouth, like I'd bitten my tongue in my sleep. I went to the bathroom mirror and checked. No blood. Just the taste. Just the cold. We tested the air filters. We checked the pipes. We ran a full diagnostic on the generator. Everything came back normal. Which is another way of saying nothing was normal. But our machines didn't know how to admit it. On day 6, the storage floor made the sound again. That slow drag beneath the metal. This time it lasted longer. It traveled. From one end of the corridor to the other, like a hand being pulled along the underside searching. I grabbed a flashlight and a screwdriver. I told myself I was checking for loose panels. Science is a great excuse to do stupid things. I waited until the corridor was empty, then knelt and unscrewed one corner of the floor plate. The metal screamed softly as it lifted. The air that rolled out was colder than anything I'd felt inside the station, and it smelled like old pennies and wet stone. I aimed the flashlight down into the gap. Ice. Not smooth. Not clean. It was rough, ridged, pushed up too close to the metal like it had grown there. And it was moving. Not melting. Not shifting like a settling sheet. Moving upward. Slowly. Steadily. As if something beneath it was pressing. I couldn't see a face. I couldn't see features. Just shadows where eyes should be. 2 darker hollows in the ice. Not carved. Imprinted. Like the ice remembered pressure. My breath hitched. The station light above me flickered, and the shadows blinked. I froze so hard I forgot I had lungs. The flashlight beam shook. The ice looked like it was listening. Then from the gap, I heard a whisper. Not words. Just a sound shaped like a name. My name. Daniel. It was wrong. Too stretched. Too careful. Like something reading a label. I slammed the floor plate down and scrambled back, palms burning, knees numb. I sat there listening. No more dragging. No more whisper. Just the wind outside, pressing its weight against the station like a warning. When I finally stood, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A thin smear along the underside of the floor plate. Dark. Sticky. Not oil. Not rust. I touched it with my glove and looked at the fingertips. The smear was almost black, but it had that same copper shine when the light hit it. Blood. Old blood. I walked back to my room on shaking legs and tried to make my brain do what it always did. Explain. Label. File it away. Pressure shift. Thermal contraction. Contamination. But deep down, another thought kept rising like ice under metal. This station wasn't sitting on frozen ground. It was sitting on a lid. And something beneath it had started to wake up. I didn't sleep after what I saw beneath the storage floor. I lay in my bunk with my eyes open, listening to the station breathe. That sounds crazy, I know. But after a week at Glacier Station, you start assigning personalities to anything that can keep you company. The generator had a cough. The vents had a whisper. The wind had a temper. and the floor had patience. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd imagined the shadows, the blinking, the whisper shaped like my name. That's what the logical part of my brain did. Best build a neat little box, slap a label on it, and shove it onto a shelf marked later. But the other part of me, older, meaner, the part that kept humans alive, long before we had degrees, kept repeating, one sentence, find out what happened here before. Every station has a history, even the ones that pretend they don't. The admin office sat at the end of a narrow corridor, past a door labeled supplies that never had what you needed. The office smelled like dust and old toner. There was a bulletin board with faded safety posters: how to lift properly, how to wash your hands, how to report harassment like corporate normalcy could survive at the edge of the world. In the corner, behind a stack of outdated forms, I noticed a metal filing cabinet. It looked wrong. Not because it was old, everything here was old. Because it was clean. No coffee rings on top. No sticky notes. No scuffs from boots. Like everyone had collectively agreed not to touch it. I tugged the top drawer. It squealed and moved a few inches. Empty. Second drawer empty. Third drawer empty. The bottom drawer didn't move at all. Locked. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for the obvious thought to show up: leave it alone. Instead, I did the thing I always do when I'm scared. I made it a task. I went to the common room and found Tom leaning against the counter, stirring instant coffee like he was punishing it. "Where do we keep spare keys?" I asked. Tom didn't look up. "We don't." "Then how do you lock a drawer?" Tom's spoon stopped. He looked at me, really looked, and his eyes had that oil rig heaviness. The look of a man who'd seen storms roll in fast and learned that arguing with weather just wastes oxygen. "You hear something last night?" he asked. I didn't answer. Tom nodded like my silence was all the answer he needed. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small key, and set it on the counter between us. "I didn't give you that," he said. "I found it," I replied. "Good," he said, and went back to stirring. I took the key to the admin office. The lock clicked open like it was relieved. The drawer slid out, slow and stiff, and inside was a folder, thick, swollen, tied with string. No label. No stamp. No official seal. Just a dark stain that had soaked through the cardboard. At first I thought it was spilled coffee. Then I got close. Dry blood has a smell if you give it time. Not sharp like fresh blood. Old. Iron heavy. Like pennies left in a wet coat pocket. My hands hesitated. I told myself it was evidence. Documentation. Liability. That helped me open it. The first pages were typed reports, maintenance logs, seismic readings, supply manifests. The kind of paperwork that makes you feel safe because it pretends the world is predictable. Then the handwriting started. It wasn't neat. It wasn't casual. It was desperate. Dark inky on lined paper, letters pressed hard enough to tear the page in places. The margins were smeared. Not from sloppy penmanship. From shaking hands. From wet fingers. From someone trying to write while something moved beneath them. At the top of the first handwritten page, in block letters, "If you are new here, read this first." Below it was a date. Years ago. I flipped the page and found a list. 7 rules. Not suggestions. Not guidelines. Rules. I felt my throat tighten because I recognized the tone immediately. This wasn't written by a manager. It was written by someone who had made a mistake and watched the station punish them for it. I sat down, took a breath, and read. Rule 1: never respond if you hear your name beneath the ice. It learns faster when you answer. There was a note beneath it, smaller, like the writer didn't want the words too loud. Sometimes it uses the voice of someone you miss. Sometimes it uses your own. My stomach turned, because I remembered the whisper Daniel. It hadn't sounded like a person. It had sounded like something reading a label out loud, slowly, making sure it got the syllables right. I kept reading. The incident attached to Rule 1 was short 317 radio crackle. Breathing 318 voice mimicked help me. 319 Marcus answered. 320 Marcus stopped blinking. That last sentence hit me wrong. Not Marcus died. Not Marcus disappeared. Just stopped blinking. Like he became something else while everyone watched. I heard footsteps in the hallway and snapped the folder half closed. It was Lee, one of the techs. Mid-30s. Baseball cap even indoors. She carried a wrench like it was part of her skeleton. "You look like you found a ghost," she said. I forced a laugh. "Just paperwork." Lee's eyes drifted to the dark stain on the folder. "That's not paperwork," she muttered. "What is it?" I asked. Lee hesitated, then gave me a look that said she'd regret honesty later. "That's why we don't make jokes about 317, she said, and walked away. Rule 2: do not look directly at the ice after 3:00 a.m. It mimics faces it remembers. I almost scoffed. Almost. Because there was a part of me that wanted this to be superstition. Campfire nonsense. Something you tell the new guy to watch him jump. But the next page had a photo stapled to it. Grainy. Black and white. A hallway window. The reflection of a man standing in it. Except the face in the glass wasn't his. It was smoother. Paler. Wrong around the mouth, like the lips were drawn by someone who'd only seen humans from far away. Under the photo, a single line: "If you stare too long, it stares back from inside you." I swallowed and thought about my own reflection. The night I saw something pale behind my shoulder. I flipped the page and found another note, this one, written in a different hand, cleaner. After 3:0, keep your eyes on metal, not ice. Metal reflects truth. Ice reflects memory. That sentence felt insane. But at Glacier Station, insane and useful were starting to overlap. Rule 3: if the temperature rises suddenly, hide. Do not investigate. That means it is close. This one came with a full incident report too. 41 internal temperature, rose 19 degrees F in 90 seconds, 2. 43 lower access door sweating, 2. 45 exterior metal warm to touch, 2. 46 wet fingerprints on the outside of the door, 2. 47 knocks open the door to check the heater. 248 sound like wet fabric tearing, 2. 49 knocks screaming stopped abruptly, 2. 50 internal temperature dropped below baseline by 10 degrees F. The writer had underlined one sentence: 3 times warm means it is touching the station. I stared at the words until they blurred. The idea of something down there generating heat close enough to sweat metal made my skin crawl. Because cold is what you expect. Heat means metabolism. Heat means breath. Heat means it isn't just a shape in the ice, it's alive. And it can get closer. Rule 4: if someone knocks from below the floor, do not help them. They are already dead. My hands went numb. Not from cold. From dread. Because Rule 4 was designed to break you. It was designed to turn your instincts against you. If you hear knocking, you help. You lift the panel. You call their name. You become the good person you were raised to be. And Glacier Station punished good people first. There was a smear across the page here, like the writer's palm had slipped. Under it, in jagged letters, "IT can knock in your rhythm." and beneath that it can knock like your heartbeat. It can knock like your mother at the door. It can knock like your kid on the wall. I sat back, breathing carefully. I thought about Mark, our mechanic, who kept a photo of his little girl taped above his bunk. Pink gloves. Missing front tooth. A grin like a dare. If he heard a child's knock, he'd tear the station apart to answer it. That was the conflict. Not ice. Not monsters. People. People and their love. Rule 5: never bleed inside the station. Blood teaches its shape. This rule made me angry at first. It felt impossible. We worked with drills, ice saws, metal edges, dry air that cracked knuckles until they split. People bleed. But the note under Rule 5 made my anger go cold. It doesn't hunt like an animal. It copies. Blood is the lesson. The writer included a short list beneath it, like they'd learned through trial and error, and the error had cost someone. If you cut yourself, burn the gauze outside. Do not throw it in the trash. Do not wash blood down a sink. Do not sleep if you tasted copper. That last line made my stomach flip, because I had tasted copper. In the hallway. In the vents. In my mouth. Had I already fed it without knowing? I pressed my tongue against my teeth, like I could scrape the memory away. Rule 6. If you see footprints leading into the ice, do not follow them. It is learning how to walk. A second photo was clipped to the page. Footprints. Not outside. Inside. Under a translucent layer of ice, like someone had walked within the glacier. The prints were too long. Too deep. Spaced wrong. Like whatever made them didn't understand knees yet. In the corner of the photo, barely visible, was the impression of a hand. 5 long fingers. Too many joints. And a thumb that bent the wrong way. The caption beneath the photo was simple. We found these the day after Jensen disappeared. He thought it was funny. He said the ice was playing a prank. The next line was written so hard it tore through the paper. The ice does not have a sense of humor. Rule 7: if the rules change, it has noticed you. No incident report. No explanation. Just blank space. Like the writer ran out of courage. At the bottom, in smaller handwriting, do not trust anything written after this line. My pulse kicked. Because there were more pages. Different handwriting. Different ink. And the stains on these pages weren't brown. They were dark red. Fresh enough to still look alive. I heard a distant laugh from the common room, someone forcing normal into the day, and it sounded wrong now. Thin. Fragile. Like a paper wall. I flipped to the next sheet. Updated rules read immediately. Only one rule was written there, but it wasn't numbered. It wasn't a rule. It was a correction. We were wrong. It doesn't live under the ice. The ice is what keeps it asleep. Under that sentence was a thumbprint pressed in fresh blood. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Then I noticed something else. The handwriting on this last page was steadier than the rest. Not panic. Resolved. Like whoever wrote it already knew they weren't leaving. Behind me, the station made a sound. Not a creak. Not a pop. A slow drag. Like a fingernail pulled across frozen glass. The lights in the admin office flickered once. Not random. One blink. Like an eye opening. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And from somewhere beneath the floor, so deep, it felt like it came from the planet's bones, I heard 3 knocks. Not loud. Not urgent. Careful. Testing. Like it was practicing. I grabbed the folder, tied it shut with shaking fingers, and backed out into the hallway. The air felt warmer. By a fraction. Just enough to notice. Just enough to remember Rule 3. If the temperature rises suddenly, hide. Do not investigate. That means it is close. I turned toward the common room where the others were. where laughter was trying to pretend we were still just workers in a cold place. And I realized the worst part. I didn't know whether to warn them, or whether warning them was exactly how the station had lost people before. Because once you put words on something, it becomes real. And Glacier Station had rules. Rules written in blood. Mark broke Rule 4 on a Tuesday. That's the part that still feels wrong to me. Not the screaming. Not the blood. Not the way the station came apart. The day. Tuesday. Because Tuesday is supposed to be normal. Tuesday is leftovers and bad coffee and pretending you're not counting the days until rotation. Mark was our mechanic. Big hands. Quiet smile. The kind of guy who fixed problems without making you feel stupid for having them. He kept a photo of his wife taped inside his locker. Blonde hair, winter scarf, cheeks red from cold. An ordinary face. A safe face. He'd been holding it together all week. But Glacier Station isn't a place you hold it together. It's a place that finds the soft part of you and presses. It started after dinner. Someone had put on an old hockey game in the common room, volume low, just to hear people in a warm arena yell about something that didn't matter. Lee was half asleep in a chair. Tom was cleaning his nails with a toothpick like it was meditation. Mark kept staring at the floor. Not like he was listening. Like he was waiting. I caught his eye and tried to make it a joke. "Don't tell me you're hearing it again," I said. Mark didn't smile. He stood up so fast his chair scraped. "Shut up," he whispered. The room went quiet. Even the hockey game sounded far away. Mark's face had changed. That hard, distant look people get right before they do something irreversible. Then we heard it. 3 knocks. From below the floor. Not loud. Not urgent. Careful. Testing. Like a polite visitor. Lee's head snapped up. Tom froze mid-breath. Nobody moved. Rule 4 hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. If someone knocks from below the floor, do not help them. They are already dead. Mark's eyes filled with water. And then a voice came through the floor. Soft. Familiar. Female. "Mark?" It wasn't a radio. It wasn't a speaker. It was the station itself using the floor like a throat. Mark's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The voice continued. "I'm cold," it said. "Mark, please. I can't breathe down here." I saw Mark's hands shake. "Claire?" he whispered. Tom stood up hard. "No," he said. One word, a command. Mark looked at him like Tom had slapped him. "That's my wife," Mark said. "That's not your wife," Tom replied. His voice was flat, but his eyes were terrified. "That's the thing." The voice below laughed softly, like it had learned laughter from watching movies. "Tom," it said, perfectly. "Don't be mean. Let him help me." Lee backed toward the hallway. "It's copying us," she muttered. "It's using memory." Mark took one step forward. I grabbed his sleeve. "Mark, listen to me. It knows your name. That's the trap." Mark yanked away so hard I stumbled. "Don't touch me," he snapped. Then his voice cracked. "You don't understand." The voice below got quieter, more intimate. "Mark, I'm right here," it said. "I can hear your heart." 3 knocks again. This time the rhythm matched Mark's breathing. Inhale. Knock. Exhale. Knock. Inhale. Knock. Mark went white. He dropped to his knees and pressed his palm against the floor like he could feel her skin through metal. "I'm coming," he said. Tom lunged for him, but Lee caught Tom's arm. "Don't," she said, eyes wide. "If you fight him, he bleeds." Rule 5. Never bleed inside the station. Blood teaches it shape. Mark ran to the storage corridor before any of us could decide what to do. We followed, but not too close. That's another thing I hate admitting. We followed like people watching a train derail. Mark found the floor plate I'd opened days before. He didn't unscrew it carefully. He ripped at it with a crowbar, cursing, sobbing, laughing all at once. "Claire!" he yelled. "Hold on!" The metal shrieked. Cold air poured out, and the smell hit us like a punch. Copper. Rot. Wet stone. Mark jammed the crowbar into the gap and levered the plate up. The ice beneath wasn't flat. It was bulging, pressing, like something was rising to meet him. "Claire, I see you," Mark cried. Then the ice moved in a way ice shouldn't. It didn't crack outward. It peeled, like skin pulled back from muscle. A wet seam opened, slow and careful. And something reached up. Not a hand. Not fully. More like an idea of a hand. Long, pale fingers under a glaze of frost, joints bending wrong, nails too dark, too thin. It touched the underside of the metal plate like it was learning what metal felt like. Mark leaned closer. "Claire," he whispered again, softer now. "Reverent." The thing below whispered back, "I'm here." And then it pulled him down. Not fast. Slow. Careful. Like it wanted to remember him. Mark's shoulders slammed the edge of the opening. He screamed, grabbed the floor, kicked. Tom finally moved. He grabbed Mark's ankles and pulled. Lee and I grabbed Tom. We formed a chain, boots sliding on frost, hands burning from cold and panic. For 1 second, we had Mark. He was halfway out. His face was twisted, eyes wide, and his mouth was full of blood. Blood. Inside the station, a drop splattered on the floor plate. Then another. The station lights flickered 3 quick blinks. Pause, 2 blinks, pause like it was excited. The thing below changed. I felt it, like a shift in pressure. It tightened. And Mark's scream turned into a choking sound. The ice around his chest rose, not like a wave. Like arms. Like ribs. Like the station was watching a body get assembled from cold. Tom shouted, "Don't let him go!" Mark's fingers clawed the metal. And then he stopped clawing. He stopped blinking. His eyes stayed open, staring past us, like he was looking at something behind our faces. And his voice, Mark's voice, came out wrong. Too smooth, too calm. "Let me go," he said. Tom froze. Lee backed away, whispering, "No, no, no." The voice continued, still Mark's but not his. "It hurts," it said. "I'm stuck. Help me. Rule 1. It learns faster when you answer." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the thing wearing Mark's voice wasn't talking to us. It was practicing. The ice surged. Mark vanished into the opening like a candle pulled into wax. The floor plate slammed down on its own. Metal on metal. A finality that rang through the station. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the temperature rose. Fast. So fast my eyelashes felt warm. The vents exhaled heat like an animal. The hallway lights brightened, then dimmed, then brightened again. Rule 3. If the temperature rises suddenly, hide. Do not investigate. That means it is close. Tom's face went gray. "Run," he said. We didn't argue. We ran. The station groaned as if waking up. Bolts popped. Walls flexed. The floor vibrated under our feet, not from machinery, but from something heavy moving below, following the sound of our panic. In the main corridor, the radio crackled to life. Breathing. Then a voice. Lee's voice. "Daniel," it called.
Daniel, wait.
"I can't find you." Lee spun toward the speaker like she'd been yanked by a hook. I grabbed her and shoved her into the nearest room, the lab. We slammed the door. Inside, the air smelled like antiseptic and old plastic. Lee was shaking so hard her teeth clicked. "It's using us," she whispered. Tom locked the door, hands clumsy. "That blood," he said. "He fed it. We fed it." Something scraped along the wall outside. Slow. Searching. Then 3 knocks on the lab door. Polite. Testing. A familiar voice spoke from the other side. My mother's voice. "Danny?" it said. "Open up." I'm freezing. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard my mother's voice in years. Not since the funeral. Lee covered her mouth with both hands to keep from making sound. Tom stared at me like he was begging me not to be human. The voice tried again, softer. Please, it said. Just a crack. Just to see you. The door handle twitched. Not like someone turning it. Like something learning what a handle was. Then the station lights flickered, and through the small window in the lab door, I saw movement. A shape passing by. Not fully formed. A tall silhouette made of ice and shadow. Shoulders too narrow, arms too long. Its surface glistened like wet skin. And in the center of its chest, something dark pulsed once. Like a heart trying out a beat. The smell of copper flooded the room. Lee gagged. Tom pressed his forehead to the door, whispering, "Go away." The voice outside changed again. Mark's voice. Calm. Friendly. "Tom," it said, "I'm okay now. Open the door." Tom's hands lifted toward the lock like he couldn't help it. Then he stopped, trembling, and looked at us. "That's not him," he said, but his voice sounded like he was trying to convince himself. The knocking stopped. Silence. For 2 seconds. Then the lights went out. Total darkness. In that black, something slammed the door once. Not a knock. A hit. The lab door bowed inward. Lee screamed. The emergency lights flickered on, dim red strips along the floor. And the station began to collapse. Somewhere deeper, metal tore. A pipe burst, hissing steam. The floor shook like the building was trying to spit us out. Tom shouted, "Maintenance tunnel! Now!" We moved on instinct. We shoved cabinets aside, found the access panel behind the freezer unit, pried it open. Cold air poured in, but it was cleaner than the copper stink. We crawled into the tunnel on hands and knees, heads down, like animals. Behind us in the lab, the door finally gave. Metal shrieked, and a wet sound followed like ice sliding over tile. Then a voice, right behind my ear, even though nobody was there. "Daniel," it whispered perfectly. "I remember you." I didn't look back. I didn't answer. I crawled until my elbows bled from scraping metal. And when the first warm drop hit the tunnel floor, I felt the whole station react. A low, pleased vibration. Like it had learned something new. They shut Glacier Station down. Not with a press release. Not with an explanation. With silence. 2 days after we crawled out of the maintenance tunnel, a helicopter found us. Not because our emergency beacon worked. Not because we radioed for help. Because someone finally noticed the station had stopped sending clean data. That's how it always was. Numbers mattered more than names. They loaded us onto the chopper in pairs, like we were contaminated samples. No one asked what happened to Mark. No one asked why my elbows were bleeding, or why Lee wouldn't stop shaking. The men in black parkas didn't look at the station. They didn't have to. They already knew what lived under it. From the air, Glacier Station looked small, a metal scar on endless white. But as the chopper lifted, I saw something I still can't explain. A thin crack line, miles long, spreading outward in a perfect arc like a smile. When we landed, they separated us immediately. Different rooms. Different handlers. Same questions. What did you see? What did you hear? Did you respond? Did you bleed? They never used the word monster. They never said entity. They called it anomalous subglacial activity. A phrase that sounds harmless until you hear it breathing. They kept the folder. The rules. Every photo. Every report. And when I asked to see it again, a man with kind eyes and dead voice said, "That material is classified." Then he leaned closer, lowered his tone, and added, "But you should keep following them anyway." Lee disappeared after the interviews. Not like she died. Not like she ran. She just stopped existing in the system. Her name wasn't on the discharge forms. Her signature wasn't on the release papers. Tom was there one moment, smoking outside a temporary medical tent, staring at the snow like it owed him answers. Then he was gone too. When I asked, they told me I was mistaken. They said I'd come alone. That's the trick they used. If they can erase the people, they can erase the place. Officially, Glacier Station never existed. No record. No coordinates. No funding trail. Just a gap where memory should be. They sent me home with a check, a non-disclosure agreement, and a medical evaluation that said I was fit for civilian life. As if what happened out there was a job injury you could wrap in gauze. I moved somewhere warm. Somewhere people complained when it dropped below freezing. They'd shiver in their coats and joke about polar vortexes and end-of-the-world weather. And I'd force a smile, like I understood their version of cold. Because they didn't know what cold really was. Cold isn't temperature. Cold is attention. At first I slept fine. I ate normal food. I watched normal TV. I tried to make my brain do what it always did, build a box, label it, shove it onto a shelf marked past. But the rules don't stay in boxes. Not the real ones. It started small. The fridge would hum at night, and for half a second, the sound would shift. Not louder. Not quieter. Just shaped. Inhale. Exhale. Slow. Like something very large learning how lungs work. I told myself it was the compressor. I told myself it was stress. I told myself all the words that had kept me functioning in the ice. Then one night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., my kitchen light flickered. 3 quick blinks, pause. 2 blinks, pause. I sat up in bed, heart banging. I checked my phone 3:17. My mouth tasted like pennies. I didn't have a nosebleed. My gums weren't bleeding. But the taste was there anyway, like a memory pressed into my tongue. The next morning, I found a scratch. Not on the floor. Under the floor. A long pale line along the baseboard near the kitchen, as if something underneath had dragged a nail across the underside, testing the shape of my home. I called an electrician, a plumber, a contractor. They shrugged. Old building. Settling. Temperature changes. Everyone has an explanation when they've never had to be right. I tried to follow the rules anyway. Rule 1, never respond if you hear your name beneath the ice. Rule 2, do not look directly at reflective surfaces after 3:00 a.m. Rule 3, if the temperature rises suddenly, hide. Do not investigate. But here's the thing they don't tell you about rules. Rules only work if the world agrees to follow them. And whatever was under Glacier Station doesn't agree. Last week, my apartment got warm in the middle of the night. Not heater kicked on warm. Warm like skin. Warm like breath on your neck. I stood in the hallway, barefoot, feeling the heat push up through the floorboards. And I remembered Mark's blood hitting metal. I remembered the station lights blinking like an eye. I didn't investigate. I hid. I sat in my bathroom with the lights off, knees to my chest, and waited for the warmth to pass. When it finally cooled, I thought it was over. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. From beneath my floor. Careful. Polite. Testing. I covered my mouth with my hands so I wouldn't make a sound. Because I knew Rule 4. If someone knocks from below, do not help them. They are already dead. A voice followed, soft and familiar. Not my mother's. Not Mark's. My own. Daniel, it whispered. It's okay. Open up. I felt my body try to stand on its own, like instinct had become a leash. But I didn't answer. I didn't move. I sat there until sunrise, sweating in a room that should have been cold. Now I keep my house warm on purpose. Not because I like it. Because I'm afraid of what happens when things freeze. Because I've learned the worst truth of all Glacier Station wasn't the cage. The ice was. And cages don't matter if the thing inside has already learned your name. If it follows you home, it's already learned your name.